It is April 2nd, 2025, and today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about and do a little tapping on how you can revamp your tapping to get more out of it every time you sit down to tap. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I am Gene Monticelli, the eponymous Gene from Wednesdays with Gene. I got 4 really fun ideas that I can't wait to share with you today. Just 4 ideas that are going to help you each time you sit down to vamp what you're doing, and it's going to dovetail perfectly onto what we're doing next week. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about some unexpected fun ways that we can also do some tapping. Before we jump into all of that, let's just take a few minutes, do a little wordless tapping. Take a nice big deep breath. And just feel yourself in your body. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move from tapping point to tapping point and just notice what's going on in your system. It's a great way for us to start. Put ourselves in our body and just be present. Nice big deep breath stretch. Now, it's really interesting when we do wordless tapping like that. Sometimes we're in a circumstance where I am just present and I'm just here. Other times, like today, this morning I was doing my morning tapping and I found my way to a moment and an issue that I haven't tapped on for 18 years. And it's not because I've been hiding from it, but it's not something that had impacted me. And now that I have something new going on in my life, it showed back up again. And so as I was doing that wordless tapping, we found our way to that. So it's super good and it's super important and super vital that you're tracking what you're doing each time you're sitting down to tap, because these ideas come up and we want to come back to them again and again. I have a free tapping guide for you, tappingtracker.com. It is exactly how I track my tapping sessions. It's super easy for you as well. If you go there, it is absolutely free. Before we jump in to talking about ways that we can revamp and revitalize our tapping routine, just a couple of quick announcements, some dates coming up. For those of you in the Tapping Mastery Academy, we have office hours on Friday. Over the weekend, next Tuesday, if you're in the Tapping Mastery Academy, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about, we're going to be tapping for grief and what grief looks like and how we do that. Next week on the live stream, we're going to be doing a bunch of creative things that you can tap for. We'll get practitioner office hours on the 10th, and 2 other things for you to note. The week of April 21st, we're going to be doing the 5 a.m. Action Club again. This is where I teach you how I start my day. Keep an eye on your inbox for that. And then on April 24th, I'm actually doing a very, very special presentation on teaching you some things that I've learned about as a tapping practitioner, how I structure my time. If you're not in the mailing list yet, just go to tappingqa.com. Make sure you just fill in a little opt-in box. So each time new stuff comes out, you're going to get a chance to engage with us as we navigate our way through all of that. So goodness. So today, like I said, what I want to do is I want to spend a little time talking about things that we can do to revamp and revitalize our tapping. Because it's really easy When there's anything that we do in a rote way to find ourselves going through the motions. Or if we know how to do something, we only hit it at a surface level. So, like when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm not thinking about my teeth. I'm not thinking about the process. I have a little electric toothbrush that buzzes every 30 seconds. So I get 30 seconds on the inside and the outside of the lower level, inside and outside of the upper level. And basically when it vibrates, I move on to the next place. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to be present to the process in order to get the most out of it. Tapping is not like that. Yes, we know simply tapping on these points is going to make a difference for us. Yes, we know it makes a difference biochemically inside of our body. But if we want to get the most out of tapping, what we want to do is we want to make sure we are as present as we can possibly be. Because like I said, it's really easy when I'm going through my routine and just tapping to not be present to it. And that means I'm not going to get the most out of it. So 4 things. I got 4 things for you today that we can do to get more out of our tapping. Number 1, before you start to tap, take 3 minutes and brainstorm the issues that you want to tap on. Now, obviously, if you're doing 1 minute of tapping in the middle of the day, I'm not going to have you do 3 minutes of tuning in before you do that. But if you're sitting down and you're setting aside more than 10 minutes to tap, for me, I find it super useful. And I don't brainstorm until I run out of ideas. I brainstorm to a timer. The same is true when I'm coming up with ideas for my business. When I'm working on email ideas or product ideas or offering ideas, at a certain point, what I do is I'm brainstorming, I run out of ideas, and I set my timer and I make myself sit in the silence to just see what comes up. Because if I make myself sit there in the task, I find my way with things that I wouldn't find otherwise. So when I sit down to tap, if I'm going to tap in a comprehensive way, or if I'm going to figure out the tapping I want to do over the course of the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, sitting down, setting a timer, doing it until the timer goes off, and just brainstorm, what are all of the things I could tap on? Now, just because you write something down, it doesn't mean you have to tap on it. Doesn't mean you have to tap on it today. Doesn't mean you have to tap on it ever. Because sometimes the things that come up, it's like, oh, I actually don't really need to tap on that particular thing. That is okay. And so as I'm engaging with it, it's just to get the ideas out. The tapping I did this morning was not the tapping I expected to do. Like I said, I found an issue that was almost 2 decades old. And as I was setting myself up for the day, because I'm going, what's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, to the point that as I felt the emotion, I saw myself sitting in my apartment 18 years ago in Baltimore tapping on that particular issue. That's how visceral the emotion was. But I wouldn't have found it if I wasn't sitting there going, what is the thing I really need to be tapping on today? So number 1, sit down and brainstorm the things that you could tap on before you start and really let those things bubble up. Number 2, and this is something that we actually teach in the Tapping Mastery Blueprint. We refer to it as question 1 because it's the first question we always ask. And the question is, what is the goal of this round of tapping? And sometimes that feels really obvious. When we get done here and I go into the kitchen, the goal of going into the kitchen is to make lunch. It's obvious what is going to go on. And my lunch and my breakfast are almost identical every single day because it takes care of me with the health choices. I don't have to think about it. I like what I'm eating. It makes it very, very simple when I'm working from home. But it's good for me to go, okay, what am I trying to do here? And so when I sit down to tap and I ask myself the question, what is the goal of this round of tapping? And you'll notice I am not saying what is the goal for the time that I'm sitting down to tap, but what is my goal for this next little bit of tapping? And that could be outcome based, and the outcome could be big and the outcome could be small. The goal of this round of tapping is just to calm myself down and put me into the body. And just do that really, really quickly. And I tap for 60 seconds in that way. The goal of this round of tapping is to eliminate my frustration. The goal of this round of tapping is to go after this limiting belief. Or the goal of this round of tapping can be, I just want to calm myself down enough so that I can move from this constellation of emotions where there's a million things, and by focusing on one thing, I'm going to get the transformation that I want. And so by narrowing the scope or giving myself a direction, it makes it so much easier to tap. One of the reasons why I created the Tapping Mastery Blueprint is because I realized that the reason that people were not tapping is they didn't know the entry point and they didn't know where to start. Because we don't want to waste time. We don't want to waste energy. And so by taking a moment and just asking yourself the simple question, what do I want to achieve, is going to force you into the moment. It's going to make you present. It's going to pull you into the ground, which is going to make it so much easier for you to get out of more benefit from this particular round of tapping. Number 3 is imagine you have to explain your lived experience to someone else. One of the questions I ask my clients a lot, they're like, I'm angry. I'm like, great. How do you know you're angry? And I'm not questioning you. I'm not saying, are you really angry? I'm saying, but how does it feel for you when you are angry? Is it fists that are clenching? Is it grinding teeth? Is it a hot face? And what happens when we start to add detail, we add clarity and we get more present. I'll give you a really, really simple example. So I want you to imagine what we would call here in the United States second grade. So when you were 8 years old or approximately 8 years old, I want you to imagine yourself in a classroom, and maybe 10, maybe whatever, but just pick one of your childhood classrooms. I want you to imagine that classroom. I want you to imagine where you're sitting. Were there windows in the classroom? Which direction were those windows in that classroom? What does your teacher look like in that classroom? Who are some of the other students that were in the classroom? Now, those are simple questions, but if you engaged with that and you were tuning into one of your childhood classrooms, each time you answered a question, I'm betting the visualization, the imagery, the connection. I don't see things in my head the way some people do, but like the recreating it in my imagination, each time I ask one of those questions, it gets sharper and sharper and sharper. And so when I'm asking my client, how do you know you're angry? And they start to describe to me what anger looks like, I can see them, not only am I getting information as a practitioner, but it's making it easier for them to engage. And so if I do that for myself, as I'm tapping, it's going to make it easier as well. And so as I sit here, as a way to make sure I'm fully present, I start asking myself my questions. How does this actually feel in my body? What are the emotions I'm experiencing? What am I thinking? And that's a really odd question because, like, as I'm doing processing, I'm working, there's still this thinking that's going on that almost feels like it's going on automatically that I'm not present to. And so by asking myself that question and engaging, it's helping me to connect in a really specific way. What would I want to have instead? Now, again, what am I feeling in my body? What are the emotions? What am I thinking? What do I want to have instead? Those are not complicated questions. But by asking myself the questions, what it does is it forces me to be present. It forces me to be where I am. And so by tuning in that way, I am more present, which means I'm going to tap more efficiently. And then finally, number 4 is to ask yourself the question, in a perfect world, what would I like to have instead? Because sometimes when I'm only thinking about what's going on, it feels a little fuzzy and like it's almost like it's hard for me to understand what I'm doing. And it's so fascinating. The moment we have a point of contrast, we get clarity. I could say for you, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, I don't know. Or if I say, hey, would you like to get Japanese food for dinner tonight? You might go, no, actually, I want a burger. I want pizza. I want whatever. But because we have something to compare it to, all of a sudden we get clarity because we're not just like grasping in the air trying to have information, but we're pointing to something really super specific. And so as I'm sitting here and as I'm tapping and as I'm thinking, It makes it so much easier for me to tune into what is going on, because if I'm naming what I want instead, it helps me to understand where I am inside of that. So 4 really simple, super things that you can do each time you sit down to tap to re-engage, to make sure that you are fully present. Number 1, spend a few minutes just brainstorming ideas of things that you could be tapping on. Force yourself to write them down. Don't just take the first thing that comes up. You might tap on the first thing that comes up, but just see what bubbles up inside of your head. Number 2, ask yourself, what is the goal of this round of tapping? It's going to help you to be more present to what is going on. Number 3, imagine you have to explain your lived experience to someone else. This is what the emotion feels like. This is what my body feels like. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I want instead. And finally, in a perfect world, I would have. And so if you do those 4 simple things, it's going to make a huge difference each time you sit down to tap to get even more out of the tapping. So pretty straightforward. Give any and all of those a try. You don't have to do them all at once, but by trying 1 or 2 of them, you're going to find that you get more out of your tapping. And when we do that, that's a double win. First of all, I get more out of the tapping, but secondly, because I am tuned in that particular way, what it does is it enables me to actually come back and tap again because I had so much success this time. So those are the 4 ideas I love to just use when I'm sitting down to step into tapping. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple for us to engage with. So just do this for me. Let's just do a quick round of tapping to kind of reinforce all of that. Nice big deep breath. And just move from point to point. I recognize the fact this is an absolutely amazing tool. But it is only a useful tool if I bring it out and if I use it. I give myself permission to know. I don't have to be perfect when I sit down to tap. But if I take the time to be present, to be thoughtful, I'm going to get more out of each round of tapping. Tapping is useful, but it's more useful when I'm not just going through the motions. And I give myself permission to be fully present to each round of tapping, which will encourage me to come back again and again and again. Nice big deep breath. And I wouldn't be surprised after we tap on that there's going to be a part of you that's going to want to sit here and do some more tapping. A couple quick notes. If you go to tappingpodcast.com, the podcast actually turned 16 years old. 16 years old back at the beginning of March. We didn't do anything to celebrate it, but there's over 650 episodes waiting for you there. Tappingpodcast.com. We got an awesome one going live here in about 40 minutes. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about creative script crafting, some really fun, interesting ways that you can add tapping to your life that is unexpected. And then 2 weeks from today, we're going to be talking about signs that you might be sabotaging your tapping, or you might be sitting down, like we talked about, but you're not doing it in a way that is deep, that is powerful enough for you to get everything out of it that you want. So, 4 really simple things. Give them a try. Let me know how they work out. You got questions about any of this, I can always be reached at support@tappingqna.com. For those of you watching this after the fact, right now on the screen, you can see playlists to all of our live episodes. We have an entire library of these things. Every Wednesday, we're back here at 11 a.m. I hope you have a great day. I look forward to talking with you and tapping with you again real soon. Bye-bye.